Suppose that you could share only one important principle with your children. What would that one be? Only one main life concept with which you could guide their future. Maybe change their beliefs and actually set their destiny. That's a tough question to answer, isn't it? Well, maybe an idea springs to mind immediately. In other words, you know that one. Or maybe not. But by tomorrow, you're liable to think of a different idea. How could anyone pick just one principle that would be the one that would serve them well throughout all of life? Well, fortunately, we don't have to do that in this series, or not exactly anyway. You're probably familiar with the combination lock theory of life. Well, if not, it goes a little something like this. There are a collection of important principles which are, we'll say, indispensable for effective living. And each person has to master all of them if they're to be truly successful in life. And exactly like it is with a combination lock, it doesn't count if you can only get 3 out of the 4 numbers right or 2 out of 3. All the principles work together in order to create an informed and a value-oriented and actually a resilient adult, which is precisely what we're striving to do. So anything less than all produces short-term success but never lasting significance in life. This week you're participating in the first of a 6-part series in which we'll consider 6 essential principles. Principles which every father, well actually every parent, must know and be able to share with each of their children. You know, even share might not actually be the correct word, since words alone are rarely enough. Your understandings of, and then your beliefs in these principles, that's the first essential component for transferring these ideas to your children. But then, the understandings have to be practiced. Understandings become beliefs, and beliefs ultimately become the life that we embrace and the style of living that we choose. And so each of these 6 is an essential. Can your children live without these understandings? Well, yes, certainly I suppose they can. Sort of in the same way that a person can drive a car without an understanding of the important principles of driving and of the road. You know, sooner or later that lack of understanding will catch up with them. And when it does, it's likely to bring harm to them or to others. So where will we begin this journey? Which of the 6 principles should we consider first? You know, maybe the best way to begin is with a quick story. And honestly, while we're at it, perhaps a brief explanation for our setting. Admittedly, it's a little unusual for a state park marina to be the place to start a consideration of the things your children must know before arriving in adulthood. But it's right here that our short story begins. It was just a few days ago, and my son and my grandson and I had just finished up some time kayaking, right here at this lake behind us. Eric, my son, and I were loading the kayaks back onto a trailer when an older gentleman approached. Well, approached may not be exactly the right word. He was standing off to the side at first, watching us. And then he started to pace around a little bit, and then soon started to walk away. But then he turned and he came back, and he said, "You wouldn't happen to have a spark plug wrench?" he asked. Well, that's not a question I'm asked every day, but I said I'd check as soon as we were done loading up. Well, it turns out that after a quick check in my toolbox, I did have a spark plug socket, a couple of them as a matter of fact, and a ratchet. Perfect. I handed them to the fella, who was extremely grateful, and then turned to continue talking with my son. About 5 minutes passed and no wrench returned. I could see the man and what I guessed was his family bending down and looking at some sort of a kayak-y thing. I had nothing else to do but to wait by this point, and so I walked over to retrieve my wrench. The man was in the process of cleaning a single spark plug on a motorized plastic-hulled kayak sort of thing, sure enough. And again, with nothing to do, I volunteered some assistance. Yes, there was spark. Well, then it should start, but nothing. And by this time I had sort of established myself as the mechanic on duty, so I pulled the plug and cleaned it again and threaded it back into place and asked him to work the starter. Still nothing. A bit of starting fluid in the carburetor would provide some more information, and so after a bit of additional checking, it proved to be a disconnected vacuum line to the fuel pump. A 3-second fix, and he and his family could actually spend some time on the lake. Each of them thanked me. More than once, really. They were ecstatic. A pleasant afternoon on the lake had been salvaged. But why? Actually, it all began with the practice of our first principle. We were designed with relationship in mind. I know what you're thinking. You know someone, or maybe a few people actually, who disprove that. Or maybe you're thinking that you're the person that disproves it. Well, just think for a moment. Most of the great things that you will ever do or experience or enjoy in life will in some way involve other people. The greatest work you will do, that too will either be done for others or with others. And even the greatest sorrows that you'll ever experience are probably in some way related to people. Which proves that you allowed yourself to become attached to one or more people, to depend on those people, to love those people, and in some way that connection was broken. And it hurt. To know this simple fact isn't enough. To know that we as humans are intended to be in rich and rewarding relationships with God and with others, that's part of it, but that's not all of it. Knowing how to create, to strengthen, renew, and even restore relationships requires a collection of understandings and skills. Skills which must be practiced and refined over time. So this week we'll be considering the many benefits and blessings of relationship with people and with God. You'll have the chance to discuss ways to help your children become comfortable and confident in connecting with others and in connecting with God. For many of us, our lack of confidence or the lack of good interpersonal skills becomes a barrier that stands in the way of future success and greater service to others. One of the greatest principles each of your children must learn, and the skills that they must develop, is a humble confidence which allows them to believe that the risk of reaching out to others can easily be worth the reward. Who knows? One day one of your children may be in need of a tool and need to approach a stranger with a strange request. But truthfully, unlike that simple story, one day your children probably will need to reach out to another for help, for friendship, to take advantage of an opportunity, or simply to offer some words of affirmation. The likelihood that they will do so may come down to the simple things you do in your home and with your children, which can help them to establish relational skills. Let's dig into that in this week's discussion.